Welcome back to another episode of Mariners Down Under. It is your weekly look at the Seattle Mariners, just with an Australian twist. Now, this week we have a special interview in store for you. We're going to be chatting with a bloke who has reached the mountaintop of playing in the show, and we're going to unpack his story with him, and that is going to be a must listen. Like usual, we'll have our 3 positive points for the week. We're going to take a look at how our friends of the podcast did down in the minor leagues for the month of June, and we'll talk about our latest giveaway, which includes a signed Cal Raleigh rookie card. Plus, I'm coming back to Seattle. And also Everett, and I'd love for you to join me at the Aqua Sox game on August 7th. I've got some free passes, and I've got some free beer vouchers to give out. So stay tuned for those details, but for now, let's get into it. So the boys lost to the Royals today, and because of that, their record is 45-42. They're still trailing Houston, but we can only take things one step at a time. And there's still some key games as we head into the All-Star break. By the time this episode gets out, we will be into our series against the Pirates. We've heard that it'll be Kirby versus Skeens. That's the one everyone's looking towards. But the Pirates, I guess we think of them as being bad all year. But recently, they've been on a winning streak. They've swept both the Mets and the Cardinals. And they kept St. Louis scoreless over the 3 games of that series while scoring 13 of their own. So, honestly, Pittsburgh are no pushovers right now. But we need to take advantage of them. And we need to get some wins. Because up next is a trip to the Big Apple to face the Yankees, who, at the time of these notes, have just been swept by the bloody Blue Jays. They're not what they were a little while ago, but they're heading back to that tiny little matchbox ballpark, which means they're going to be a really bloody dangerous team to face. And then after we face the Yankees, we're going to be heading to Detroit to face the all-conquering Tigers, and that'll be our final series before the All-Star break arrives. So there's some huge games, and I feel like it's a real crossroads for the team. I feel like if we can get on a roll here and we can force in some W's, we're going to force ownership's hand at the deadline. And if we don't, then we might just be a little bit too far behind Houston to make them excited enough to make some roster moves. And I know that's probably stating the obvious, but we are now getting to the point in the season where we've played a lot of games. Who we are is who we are. It's time to get some wins. Let's force ownership's hand. I really believe we're not that far off from being just the most incredible team out there. So, in the latest Mariners news, Cal Raleigh has been named the All-Star Game starter. We got him over the line, which is brilliant news. I mean, really, was there ever any question that Cal should be the guy? He's the home run leader coming off a platinum glove season. That right there is the definition of an all-star. And props to the Mariners for the job that they did on social media and around the park, getting everyone to vote for Cal. I mean, there was the video of how he's destroyed the souls of opposing fans. There was the big dump truck, the Vote for Cal t-shirts the boys were wearing. Honestly, fair play to the marketing team here. Emerson Hancock has been optioned to AAA Tacoma. This was after he gave up 5 earned runs on 7 hits, and that was in the loss that was 6-3 L to the Royals. We've seen Logan Evans rejoin the rotation. He pitched today in the final game of the Kansas City series. I listened to the game on radio. It seemed like he got himself in a couple of jams and he got himself out of them. So, pretty good outing from Logan Evans, really. Bryce Miller, he's rejoined the Mariners in Seattle after doing some rehab down in Arizona. Now, they're optimistic that over the All-Star break, he might throw a live BP, and then shortly after, he could start a rehab assignment. So he's received what they call a platelet-rich plasma injection. Not sure what that is, but it sounds fancy. And that's to address the bone spur that he's been battling all season. So hopefully that has a good result. And if it doesn't, it's back to the drawing board. And unfortunately, that could mean that he just goes under the knife. But what I do know is a 100% Bryce Miller is a guy that I will go to war with every single day of the week. And whatever needs to be done to get him right, let's do it. Speaking of people that are getting right, Victor Robles and Ryan Bliss. I mean, do we really need to say much here? These fellas are going to be out for a little while. And Colin Snyder, he is expected to be back mid this month. So he should have thrown a live BP by the time this episode gets out. and he will need a minor league assignment. So he still is a little way away, which is a shame because that poor bullpen of ours on this big, long stretch, they've been under the pump. Now, the Mariners will be represented in the Futures game at the All-Star break by 3 players. Lazaro Montes and his 21 home runs will be the headliner. He's continued to tear it up in Triple A. In Double A. Honestly, he'd probably still be tearing it up in Triple A if he was there. He looks like he hasn't missed a beat. So he deserves the spotlight there. Harry Ford and Durangelo Senja will also join him as the Mariners reps for the game. The Mariners have the most prospects named to the Futures game out of all of the AL West teams. And that isn't a shock, given the updated MLB pipeline list that has just hit us. It's got us with 9 prospects in the top 100. On that list is Colt Emerson at 18. Laz, he's at 29. Cole Young's at 34. Fallon and Saliston, he's at 54. Harry Ford's at 56. Michael Arroyo's at 65. And Johnny Farmello's at 66. Durangelo, he's at 79. And our mate and friend of the podcast, Ryan Sloan, he's at 83. So congratulations to all of those blokes. And of course, a congratulations to the Mariners front office for doing such an exceptional job on draft day. Speaking of great things, we've got Ike joining us for our 3 positive points for the week. Mate, who's number 1 on your list?
We're going to start this list off with Brian Wu. In his last 3 starts, he's going 2-0. But more impressive than that, each time he's started, he's gone 6 innings, which saves your bullpen. A lot of arms that are getting tired, used a lot in this long stint of games with no rest. He's only given up 12 hits and 5 walks, but more impressively, he's racked up 24 Ks during that stretch. And he just finds a way to stay out there. Even when he gets hit around a little bit, he will then come out and he'll just throw a lightning quick, low pitch count inning to make it to that 6th and 7th.
Now, my first positive point for the week is Randy Rosarena. He's on one of those tears right now. He's a guy that he's going to be a flash in the pan every now and again. He's going to get hot. He's going to get hot at different points of the season. And God, I am so glad he's on one right now. So for the season, he's hitting .252 with 12 homers, 40 RBIs, and he's stolen 15 bags. And he's accumulated 2.2 WAR, which places him 3rd on the Mariners WAR leaderboard. That's behind Cal with 5.6 and Julio, who has 2.5. But it's actually his last 15 games where we're really seeing him at his best. His average is up to 356, which is 100 points higher than his season average. He's come up massive in some huge moments. His WRC plus is sitting at 132. And his defense, which is something that, people give him a hard time for all the time, that's been really handy. So my hat's off to him, and I'm hoping that his run of good form continues because Lord knows we need it right now. Who's number 2 on your list, mate?
Number 2 is going to be J.P. Crawford. In the last 7 games, he's got 3 runs, 11 hits, 1 RBI. He's batting .333 over that stretch with a slugging percentage of .364. We keep him in that leadoff spot for a reason. He's seeing the ball really well. He's getting those pitch counts up before the pitcher's going to have to face the meat of our order with Julio, Cal, Randy, and, he gets a way to be on base, which forces the pitchers to really focus in and not slack off before you see Cal in that 4th spot.
Yeah, he's been pretty clutch lately. A guy that I want to give a positive point to is Matt Brash. Now, I know he's finally given up a run, but that doesn't diminish how bloody outstanding he's been this season. So it's a 0.49 ERA over 18.1 innings, 19 strikeouts. And to summarise it, he's been big in big moments. So there really isn't enough compliments that I can give the bloke. His walks per 9 is at 3.12, which is the lowest he's ever had. His home runs per 9, they're non-existent. And his ground ball percentage is at 61, which is 10 points above his career high. We're in a really big stretch right now. And for a lot of the season, the bullpen has been under some sort of pressure. But Brash, he always finds a way to stand tall, and he always finds a way to deliver. And for that, he's my second positive point for the week. Who's rounding out your 3rd one, mate?
3rd on the list, new person to our 3 positives. It's going to be Dominic Canzone. over the last 7 games. He's got 2 runs, 5 hits, but 2 of those hits were home runs. He's batting 227 since coming back up in those 7 games, and his slugging percentage is 500. He's hitting the ball hard, and sooner or later, if you keep hitting it hard, it's going to skate past a glove. And he's down there in the bottom of the order where if he can get on, he gives the guys up top like J.P. Crawford, your Julios, a chance to make a single they get turn into a run.
Yeah,
And
he
his
had a massive hit
defense.
today. He
Oh,
was he
yeah.
was key today. We just unfortunately we couldn't take advantage of that. But yeah, I agree with you. He's been a nice little piece since coming up, and I think that time in AAA really did him well. Now I want to put another sort of lesser spoken about name as my third positive point. So in his last 7 games, Miles Mastrobuoni is hitting 313. That's about 80 points higher than his season average so far. He's had 5 hits and 2 RBIs in that time, plus that amazing catch the other day. And while these numbers might not necessarily jump off the page, when you remember what Miles's role was meant to be compared to the output that he's given us, I kind of feel like he's actually come up big for us this season. His walk rate is at a career high, 10.5%. His K rate is at a career low. His WRC plus, it's at 84, which that's a career high. And again, obviously we'd love everybody to be at 100 or higher on, the WRC plus mark, but when you think relative to his role, his pay, what he's on the books for, and then his expectation, he's been really solid off the bench. Like he's playing above his pay grade. He's all effort, and I think he deserves a bit of a pat on the back. I know he's not brash, he's not Randy, but again, the guy is just playing his role. So looks like there's a lot of guys there that are playing their role right now. We're still waiting on Julio to hit that sort of summer form. Once he does, we know it's inevitable. It's going to happen, and hopefully Cal continues to hit the ball well. I think this team, can be really dangerous, and hopefully we can add another impact bat or two at the deadline and strengthen that. Well, thanks, Ike, for joining us. I know it was a quick phone in. It's a bumper episode on this one, but you also went to the Twins series recently, and there were some people that hooked you up pretty big, and I know you wanted to give them a quick shout out.
Absolutely. Kalen and JT, me and the missus, we appreciated everything you did for us, hosting us, taking us to the games, letting us borrow the car to go to the games on our own. You don't know how much that means to us, getting to go see the boys play in a situation where we didn't have to spend an arm and a leg to go do it.
Nah, it's good when people help you out. I know I'm lucky every time I go to Seattle. There's some details that is going to come a little bit later in the episode about some free tickets that we're giving out. We're having a Mariners Down Under night at the Everett Aquasox, and a whole heap of people have offered to give me a ride. So, mate, I completely understand, why you want to show that appreciation when people come up big. So, thanks again for joining us, and yeah, I'm sure we'll have you on again soon. Now, we've got a lot of people who've become fans of many of our podcast guests, and I know that following all the happenings of the big league team as well as all of the minor league levels can be really bloody tricky. So we've got you covered. For the month of June, Aiden Butler, he threw 10.2 innings, allowing only 4 runs and securing himself 10 strikeouts for the Modesto Nuts. Ryan Sloan, he threw 17.1 innings for the Nuts, striking out 13 and showing off some elite stuff in Modesto. Tyler Cleveland took home Mariners Minor League Reliever of the Month after securing a 0.00 ERA over 8.1 innings of work. Cleve gave up only 3 hits, and he struck out 16 batters for Everett. I don't do hot takes on here, but this guy, he needs to be moved up. His unique action, his stuff, I want to progress him. I think that throwing him out there at the big league level when he gets there just gives us a different look. So if we can get him some reps at double A, and then we can see how he goes, and then potentially he could be somebody, in the mix that mid-season next year can get a call up to the bullpen. And I'd just be really interested to see how he goes. Ryan Hawks, he continued to be impressive for the Frogs. 23 innings for June, a 1.17 ERA. He gave up only 3 runs and he had himself 18 strikeouts. Our mate, Brock Moore, well, he did himself a little bit of a mischief and he's been put on a bit of rest to heal up. But I spoke with him the other day and he said he would be back pretty soon. In 4 outings in early June, he pitched 3.1 innings, giving up only 2 hits and earning himself a 0.0 ERA for June. He also had 7 Ks as well for the Aqua Sox. Stefan Raith, he also joined Brock and Cleve, rocking a 0.0 ERA for June. In 9 innings, he gave up only 3 hits, and he struck out 9 as well. Josh Caron, he hit 234 for the month of June. He tallied 15 hits, 3 home runs, and 7 RBIs to go along with 8 walks. Charlie Bielenson has spent time in both Everett and Arkansas. Of course, you'll know he got promoted to Double A. That earned him a 2.70 ERA for the month over 10 innings. His 2 starts for the Travs saw him give up only 1 hit and 0 runs. And over the month, Charlie had a combined 10 strikeouts. Jason Ruffcorn scored himself a 0.82 ERA for June over 11 innings in Arkansas. He had 15 strikeouts to his name. Josh Hood, he hit 239 for the month with 17 hits, 3 homers, 12 RBI, and 5 walks. And he's been overshadowed by the promotion and the great hitting of Laz and Arroyo. But down in Double A, Bill Knight had himself a month with a 295 average, 28 hits, 14 RBIs, and 39 total bases. And Austin Kitchen, today's guest, he had himself a 2.03 ERA down in Tacoma over 13 innings, and he struck out 14. So a lot of really big months for some of our friends of the podcast, and that list continues to grow. So we're really thankful for these guys and their time, and obviously we feel it's our duty to make sure they get the recognition that they deserve. Speaking of what people deserve, we've got our latest giveaway, which you may have seen on Instagram. So honestly, I'd love to get this one ticked off by the time I get back to Seattle in August. So we're chasing 1,000 followers on Instagram. And so far, we've just ticked over 600. Now, when we get to 1,000, we're giving away a major prize pack. It includes the standards, which is one of our Mariners Down Under t-shirts. We're talking keychains, a signed Cal Raleigh rookie card, which last time someone looked for me was worth well over 200 Australian dollars just by itself. There's a signed Brash rookie, a Munoz rookie auto, a Kirby Bowman first, a Canzone numbered to 10 rookie auto, a Tyler Locklear on-card auto, and gosh, there's a heap more in there too. So the rules are the same as last time. Anyone that's a follower automatically gets an entry, but you can score yourself more tickets in that raffle just by tagging friends, sharing the post, and more. All of the details are on our Instagram, so go and check out the post at Mariners Down Under. And some more giveaways. I'm going to be in Seattle in early August. So on the 8th, I'll be at T-Mobile Park, but on the 7th of August, I will be in Everett at the Aqua Sox game. Now, we've got 10 free passes to give away, and those those free passes, gosh, that's a tongue twister, they come with a beer voucher as well. So they're not just any old ticket. But the first giveaway that we have, we're giving away 5 tickets. All you need to do is go to our Instagram and comment on the post who your favourite Mariners minor leaguer is. All of the details are on the post, but 5 lucky winners will be selected. You'll get a free ticket and you'll get a free beer to the game on the 7th. We're going to reach out to some of our Aqua Sox connections. We're going to make sure that as a group we're looked after when it comes to autographs and photos. And I will also be bringing some free merchandise as well. So keep an eye on our Instagram for all of the details and be sure to enter the draw. But that's enough from me. It's now time to get into our player interview for the week. Now, fair warning, this was an exceptional interview. Austin was a bloody good guest. But my little one had brought home a bug that I still haven't been able to shake. I've been recording this in little bits. I've been trying to rush through this because I keep having these coughing fits. But at the time of recording this, the old voice wasn't at its best. And my head was all over the place with a head cold. So you'll have to excuse me on my end. But nonetheless, it was an outstanding interview with an outstanding bloke. So let's get to it. This week's interview with Austin Kitchen. Today we're joined by a bloke who has experienced all the highs and lows of professional baseball. Undrafted out of college and very unlucky to be part of that COVID mess of a time, to then being designated for assignment, to then achieving his ultimate dream of being called up to the big leagues. His journey is a testament to his commitment to the game and his self-belief. And it's one hell of a story that I look forward to unpacking. Austin Kitchen, mate, thank you so much for your time and for being here today.
Thank you for having me on, Nate. Thank you.
Now, we usually start with this one because everyone's got I guess, a different backstory. But baseball, what was your earliest childhood memory of getting involved in the sport?
I would say probably when I was 5 years old. I did have a brother that was 2 years older than me, and he was always whatever he did when I was young. I wanted to do it with him. And at that young age, you don't realize the age gap and the difference. So when I started seeing him play baseball, I was like, man, I want to do it with him. So I would say the youngest was probably 5 years old. I remember getting into t-ball, and that's when you start meeting all your friends. Kids from school. You're playing in the summertime, so I would say those are the earliest memories, just playing t-ball and wanting to play with my brother when I was too young to probably play with him. So yeah, those are the earliest days.
Now, high school was a great time for you, mate. There was nearly too much to list, so I tried to summarise it a little bit. But you were 6-1 in your senior year. It was a 2.29 ERA, a school record that year with 85 strikeouts in 51 innings. You were named the Pittsburgh South Hills Almanac MVP. They got to shorten that. That was way too long to throw out. Can you talk to me about your high school journey when those baseball college offers started to come in?
So for me, high school, freshman year, made the varsity team. Got a couple big starts, got to play a little bit. And at that age, I had a mentor that plays for the Cubs, Ian Happ. And he was a senior when I was a freshman. And he kind of took me under his wing and showed me what it takes to play college ball. And, he kind of got my ear and said, hey, man, you're doing pretty good at a young age. I wasn't throwing very hard. I think, freshman year I was 80, 82 miles an hour, but knew how to pitch, could throw strikes. And he kind of got my ear and said, hey, I think you can go further with baseball than any other sport. So I kind of gave up football, gave up basketball, all the other sports. And then my sophomore year started getting a little bit better. And then I would say my junior year of high school kind of got a velo uptick where I started throwing, 87, getting up there, 88. And some of the college looks started to come. And I remember going to a summer ball tournament in Philly at Temple University. And I, had a great day. It was like 4 innings, 8 strikeouts, right? Every kid's, big day. And I saw a nice Southern man, a big mustache come up to me and it said Coastal Carolina on his shirt. And at that time, I was looking in the Northeast to go to college, kind of where I was from, kind of staying close to home. And there was something about Coach Gilmore, Gary Gilmore. He kind of sold me on the vision of Coastal Carolina. And he just said, hey, all I ask of you, he was like, come on a plane, come down and just take a visit. And when I went down to Coastal Carolina, that was my first time ever being that far away from home. And seeing the beach, seeing the palm trees, the different type of vibe, and then the heat. And I was looking at it like, man, baseball, outdoor sport. I don't want to be up north in the wintertime indoors trying to play baseball. So I saw that university. He sold the vision of going to Omaha, winning a national title. Everything he spoke of just sounded so convicted. And, man, he got me. I think I was there for one day for the visit. He gave me my offer, and I was like, you know what? Yeah, I'm going to come here and play there.
So there's no NIL for you. It's not a thing. So what, back in the olden days, what were some of the things that a program would sell you on besides the palm trees? What else had you interested in hanging out there? Besides, because there's obviously nowadays, I mean, these kids are getting they're getting $1 million just to sign.
100%. I mean, his biggest sale was the facilities, and at the time that I was visiting, I think that was the summer of 2014. They were in the middle of building, a $25 million stadium that they called the Palace. And they were like, hey, this is where, everything's going to come to fruition. And then the education. I went to school for business. And, they sold me on the wall College of Business saying how, it's a top 100 public school now for business school. So that was a big thing for me. And then he just went through some stats. And I knew Coastal Carolina was a good program when I first saw him. But then I started hearing some of the statistics, 6th in the NCAA since the year 2000 in win percentage. And I was like, wow, we're at 15 regional appearances. And then he said 2008, 2010, we've been to the super regionals, and we weren't able to get over that hump and get to Omaha. And, him selling me saying, hey, you're a big piece for us. We believe you can come in as a freshman and play a role to help us get over that hump. We've been everywhere we need to be but Omaha. And he's like, we're a historic winning program. We develop, we get guys drafted. So when I saw all that on the baseball end of it, and then he sold even the schooling side, It was a smaller campus. I think it was 13,000 students, so it wasn't so big where you feel lost, and it wasn't too small where you feel like everything's on top of you. So I would say that just the whole totality of it, that was the biggest thing. And then the last selling point where I committed on the spot was, football at the time at Coastal Carolina wasn't massive yet. They were FCS. And his thing was the Carolinas, there's no pro sports. He was like, we are the main attraction here, and baseball kind of runs this university as far as winning and everything else. And he was like, we're kind of the big dogs on campus. Everybody roots for Coastal baseball. So I feel like if you go to, where I was from, University of Pittsburgh, you go to Penn State, football runs the world. So to go to a school that baseball is the most valued sport, that was a big thing for me.
So the old Google Maps tells me that it is quite a few hours from, your hometown to college. If you can think back to that time, because I like in these interviews to humanise you guys as, I think sometimes people see players as you're just an asset, but you are a human. You have emotions, you have feelings, and you have the same challenges that the everyday person faces. You just happen to throw a ball a little bit better than I do. What was some of the big adjustments that you found moving so far from home and I guess in essence being away from that support system?
I would say for me, time management, organizational skills, things of that nature. I looked at it. Luckily, I feel like I've been pretty mature from a young age, and I think that stems from having siblings that were older than me. I would say learning just how to move on your own, right? Like nothing's done for you. Anything you want done, I don't care if it's laundry, if it's getting somewhere, whatever you need, you got to learn to rely on yourself. And I think being that far from home, there was no crutch to kind of lean against and say, hey, help me here, help me there. And then I feel like you rely on your teammates. You build a culture, and they end up kind of being your support system. And that kind of builds that family mesh. So I would say those were just the biggest adjustments, just learning how to go about life, cooking on your own, doing stuff like that, grocery shopping, laundry, the basic types of things. And those were probably the hardest things to get used to. And like I said, the coaching staff there at the time, I was blessed where I'm like, hey, anything I felt like happened on a personal level, baseball, school, anything, I could have went to my coaching staff and they would have been there for me. And then, me, I'm a big man of faith. So anything I felt like was too much at the time, I seek the help, from a power greater than me. And that kind of always eased my mind, going through life and struggles and the ups and downs.
Now, as a junior in high school, you hit 380, which for a pitcher is worth its weight in gold. And all good things come to an end, mate. But what was the telling point when you decided to actually hang up the bat? Because it's not like you were hanging around the low 300s. I mean, you were nearly hitting 4. What was the catalyst for just going, I got to focus on one side?
I would say for me, knowing that going to a Division I school and a conference that's known for baseball in the Big South at the time, I knew that the competition was going to creep up so much and drastically. Where my senior year, I was so lucky where I had a great head coach, Pat McCloskey, and he just said, hey, look, for injuries, any other thing that can happen to you, he was like, we're still going to let you hit as a senior, things of that nature, but he's like, we want to dial it back, keep you healthy, and let you focus on the pitching because, he told me, the hitting at the next level is going to jump drastically. And he was like, I want you to kind of focus on your craft, but also be a kid. You've earned the right to hit. We're still going to let you hit. But kind of putting the bat down, it was one of those things where I knew even the pitching at the next level, it's such a jump that, I'll call it how it is. If that ball was coming straight, I could hit it. But when they started spinning it and you start seeing some hard sliders and big curveballs, I was like, yeah, I don't know. I think it might be time to lay the bat down. So
that's fair enough. You've got to know your limits, mate. There's nothing wrong with knowing your limits. 100%. Now, freshman year, that's 2016. You're named freshman All-American. Your Coastal's go-to guy in terms of being a lefty out of the pen. Like, that's some serious success straight off the bat. And I know athletes all have a high level of self-belief, but did you expect that in year one?
Honestly, coming into the fall, I thought I could be a piece, and you jump to that next level, and there was a little bit of doubt early on because I got there and it's a very, very old team, a lot of seniors, a lot of fifth-year seniors, and I'd say when that first fall inter-squad game hits, and everybody's there, and you're watching the pitching, Obviously a national champion team. There was a lot of talent on that team. And I remember looking like, hey, it's going to be tough, to get on the field. And I'm going to get some innings, but, maybe not to the liking that I would have wanted. And that kind of honed me in where I looked at it like, hey, I'm either going to get redshirted, right, or I'm going to be a small piece. And at a young age, I kind of just looked at it like it's up to me. I control my own destiny. If I go out there and I put forth the work and try to pick the minds of the seniors and the guys that have been there and what it takes to be successful, I was like, I can be a piece. And I remember, that fall pitched really, really well. I wasn't where I wanted to be stuff-wise yet, but the pitchability side of things allowed me to get outs. And I remember, I think it was right after Christmas Day, Coach Gilmore called me in the offseason or over that Christmas break and said, hey, we're going to put you on full scholarship. And I was like, wow, okay. So, in baseball, that's rare. You got 35 guys on a team from the 11.7 scholarship. So when he threw that type of scholarship at me, I was like, okay, he knows I can be a piece and pitch. And then going out there in that spring, I looked at it like, man, I know this sounds horrible maybe, but you're a freshman. Your freshmen usually struggle, right? So I was like, man, I feel like I had nothing to lose. Go out there, play free. And I'd say, man, after the first outing into the second, things were just going good. And you just kind of hit your stride. And the confidence kind of soared where I was like, hey, I'm meant to be here. I can do this, but also play a key role for this team. And just once I started getting on a roll, I just kind of never looked back.
2018, mate. Unfortunately, a torn ACL, and it's in a preseason workout of all things too. So I guess after the initial shock of the injury, what was your mental state like, and how did you keep yourself positive through that challenge? And on top of that, were you always going to come back to baseball after that, or was there a part of you that was like, do you know what, that might be it for me?
I would say the hardest part with that injury was the summer before. In the summer of 17, I got to go to Cape Cod League and showcase what I can do. And, I put up a sub-3, I think just under sub-3 ERA. And then you go into fall, you have your pro day. And I'm like, man, I met with, I think 24 teams out of 30. And I was like, man, everything was just going kind of where I wanted. And, in the blink of an eye, boom, your leg kind of snaps. And next thing you know, the surgery's there a week later. And I remember sitting there when I was laid up, and I wouldn't say I ever had a doubt that I wouldn't come back or play the game. I just looked at it like, man, I feel like I lost so much, where I knew the road back was going to be hard. And then just the way the business works for the draft. I was going to be an older guy. The next year the draft came. And even that year, I got some calls from some teams in the draft, and physically and mentally I wasn't ready. And I was like, hey, you know what? I need to go back to school, make sure I am healthy. But it was just such a long road and such a battle. And then even 2019 coming back, felt healthy in the first half of the year and pitched extremely well my last year. And then that second half of the year, I could tell there was some fatigue, where I didn't feel like I was 100% and the body wasn't ready to handle that amount of innings. But I knew coming back, if I took, the rehab serious and did what I needed to do, I could at least get back on the field. And I've always been one of those guys that I'm not afraid to swim upstream. I just look at it like I'll get where I need to be. And that's kind of how that career has turned out for me, where it's been a long road.
So you did mention 2019 coming back. It was successful. Like, you look on paper, it's a 6-4 record, 70.2 innings pitched. Unfortunately, the world kind of does go down the shitter. COVID happens. Everything's turned upside down. Look, we don't have college here, so I make a lot of assumptions with, how many years you can go and whatnot. But was returning to school still on the table? I know you declared for the 2020 draft. Was there the option to go back for another year? Did you seriously consider that? Because obviously the world is different now. Your path to the draft has changed dramatically. Was it always draft, or was there, hey, I might just come back for that extra year?
There was a lot of thought. So after that 2019 season ended, and we lost at the regional at Georgia Tech, I stayed at Coastal that entire summer. So all of June, all of July, and we were about 20 days, I think, from the team, reporting back, getting ready for school. And I sat all summer, and I thought about coming back and playing. Coach Gilmore, one of the best in the country, best to ever do it as a coach. he never rushed me. He kind of talked with me. We met a lot of different times and spoke about the decision, what it could look like coming back, what it looks like if I don't. And I just had such a weird feeling in my mind where we sat there, we talked, and he explained that if I didn't come back, obviously that road would be tough, especially if you don't go or get drafted. The indie ball route isn't for everybody. It's a grind. And I just expressed to him, I was like, man, I feel like I'm kind of stagnant as far as how I was developing on the pitching end there at that time. And I said, you know what? I'm going to head home. I'm going to bet on myself, go to indie ball, and just kind of embrace that uphill battle. And it's just one of those moments in your career as a young guy still, at 22 years old, you don't know if you're making the right decision or the wrong decision. And for me, I was like, you know what? I'll bet on myself, and I'll take matters in my own hands and just try to build myself into who I visioned myself being. And that was when I was just like, yeah, I'll go the indie ball route. And, he expressed that to me, how he was, disappointed. He's obviously, I want you to come back. You can be a leader of this team. And he was like, man, that's a tough road. And there's a lot of guys that go to indie ball that, they never get that chance to get in the pro ball. But I never really let the negativity or the harshness of it creep into my mind. And I was appreciative of him explaining, hey, this could be it for you. It's a tough road. So it ended up being one of the best decisions I've ever made. And it taught me not only just more about the game, about who I am and kind of, the things that I can get through. So it was one of the best decisions I ever made.
The 2020 draft, it's a shortened draft, so it's different than everybody else that we've had on. It's a different story. You've obviously had those discussions with your coach, but did you know there was I guess a minuscule shot that you were going to get picked? I mean, there's less picks. It's a different year. Was your mindset already 100% on indie ball, or was there a bit of, okay, the draft is over, I'm actually disappointed, I thought there was a little bit of a shot there that I could have been taken?
I would say when it was still 40 rounds, right before that announcement came, I was like, hey, I think I have a good shot. Now, I wouldn't have signed for a lot of money. I would have been that 35th to 40th rounder, but an opportunity was all I wanted at that time. I didn't care about the round, didn't care about the money. And as soon as they said, hey, 5 rounds, I was like, all right, indie ball, here we come. I was like, there's just no shot. So, yeah, I kind of knew up front once they cut it down to 5 rounds, hey, maybe a free agent deal at the end of the draft. You never know. But that was also in just such a tough time where they were cutting rookie ball out. They were cutting short season out. So rosters were already going, I think, from like 205 guys to 180. And that was 25 guys that were already in a system that were just going to get canned because there was no room. So I knew it was going to be a grind. But, yeah, once that draft got labeled to 5 rounds, I was like, okay, go to indie ball. I was like, you'll get your time. And at that point, I was kind of hitting my stride, getting back to where I feel like I wanted to be. So either way, whether it was the draft, if it was indie ball, I was excited. I knew I was going to be able to go out there and do what I wanted to do, pitching-wise.
Now, COVID costs so many people so many things. Now, some are bigger than others, but I guess my saying is your own battles are the ones that are most important to you, right? So let's not take away from anyone else's memory or struggle during that time, but do you feel like COVID ripped you off a bit with your baseball journey, or have you sort of just been like, whatever, I'm good now?
I kind of just look at it's whatever. I'm one of those guys where I try to be so positive, glass half full, and when things aren't going well, mentality is everything. And I'm just like, man, I'd rather trick myself into thinking I'm in a positive situation rather than to ever think negative. So I'm one of them guys, I don't care what comes at me or what a situation is, I'll always water the grass I'm on and kind of make the best out of it. Did it hurt me? 100%, having COVID there. But I looked at it like, it could be way worse, right? There's a million other things in that time that were going on that were horrible. And I'm like, man, if me not being able to get drafted is the worst that comes out of COVID compared to the rest of the world, what's going on, I was like, man, my problems are so small compared to the rest. So I never really sat there and tried to feel, sorry for myself or, hey, I'm getting robbed. I'm just like, man, what's next? What's the next move?
So you end up signing a minor league contract with the Rockies, but that's not until 12, 13 months, after the draft. So you've played indie ball during that time, but what did you do to, I guess, improve yourself physically and mentally? Like there's got to have been challenges along the way where maybe you're 6 months in and you're going, okay, like real life is starting to hit some of my mates. They're all starting to maybe get married or take real jobs and real careers. And I'm out here grinding the indie ball part. What did you do to self-improve over that journey and outside of just hitting a mound and throwing a ball?
I would say during COVID, and when that draft process was going on, and then the post 20 draft into my minor league contract, I was living back in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and I was working a regular job. I worked night shifts at a bakery and doing that route, and then I went and worked at Cadillac as a like a detailer, and I was just working a regular job. So I felt like I looked at it like I'm getting a taste of the real world, and I'm trying to better myself in that aspect of it and feel what it's like to be in the real world. Because in college, call it what it is. You get your meal plan, your housing's paid for, right? It's just, I don't want to say it's all catered to you, but it does feel easier. Now you have to grind off the field, and do certain stuff. But I got the taste of the real world, and then I said, hey, you know what? Baseball, it's going fine. I got my taste in the struggle of life, trying to afford to survive and train and do everything else. And I said, you know what? I told my wife, I was like, let's move back to Myrtle Beach, where coastal Carolina is. And I said, hey, you know what? Let me go down there. Let me finish my degree. I had like 5 classes left. And I'm one of those guys, anything you start, finish. And I was like, I'm so close to that aspect of it. So I wanted to go get my degree because I didn't know what baseball was going to hold for me at that time. I was getting older, 23, pushing 24. The call was never coming. And so I went and finished that degree. And then to take the next step with baseball, they changed coaching staffs down there as far as the pitching coaches and things of that nature. And Coach Gilmore opened his doors and said, hey, this is your home. Whatever you need, use our resources, use our facilities, and train. So I got that taste of it. And then also moving. I moved 10 hours away from home. I went down there with no work. I didn't know what I was going to do. And that taught me a lot too. It's just the art of survival. How can you find a way to make a buck and, keep the dream alive, but also, you're managing your relationship with my wife now, and you're trying to balance kind of everything. So, man, that experience and that time period taught me so much. And then also going back to Coastal and being able to walk through those doors as an alum, but also still trying to train, that taught me a lot too, that I can make an impact. Where I looked at those young guys there, and if you look at my career, yeah, there was a lot of ups, but then where I was at that time was all downs. So I was able to relay my experiences with those young guys and tell them, hey, this is where maybe I messed up. This is where I could have been better. And I don't mind speaking on my failures to those guys because I want to help them. So I tried to turn it into, try to touch every guy in that locker room I can, let them know, these are the best years of your life. You guys have no idea how easy you have it. You guys have each other, and you're going to meet some of your best friends in the world, and one day all you guys are going to be separated, right? Everyone's from a different part of the country. And it's like, appreciate the times that you're in. So I would say that time period itself taught me a ton about myself and the game.
So the Rockies sign you, and then, mate, it was a nightmare trying to keep up with your movements after that. You were assigned everywhere. So it's Arizona League with Fresno. That's less than 2 months there. Then you're in Spokane less than a year later. Hartford's another move. That is less than 4 months later. That's a hell of a ride. And then uncertainty sort of starts to set in. You're here, you're there, you're everywhere. There's nowhere that you're actually set. It's kind of like you learn everyone's name and then you're gone. How hard is that actually as a player? Because I guess for us as fans, like from a Mariners point of view, we have a lot of young players right now that we're all itching to get up to the big leagues and we want them moving and moving and moving. But can you speak on that human side of just how tough moving around all the time is as a young player?
It is tough because, it's the first time you've ever really done it, and it's like anything you do for the first time, you're probably not going to hit the nail on the head and do it right or be able to handle it all correctly. And, me signing with Colorado, I got a $0 signing bonus. I'm sitting there like, I don't even care. I'm just happy to wear a jersey, right? And I'm looking at my age, I'm looking at the guys from my first year of eligibility with the draft, the 2018 guys, and I'm sitting there and extended, for I think it was 2 months, maybe pitching in the ACL. And I'm looking at my whole original draft class sitting in AA. And I'm like, man, they're already so far ahead of the curve. And, you you hit that mindset where you're like, man, I'm so far behind. And luckily, I had a coach, an extended named Dave Burba, 15 years, 16-year big leaguer. And any time I entered that mindset, he was someone that I could have went and talked to at any point in time. He just said, hey, he goes, you have a jersey on? I'm sitting there like, yeah, I got a jersey on. He's like, well, then you have a shot. Who cares? You're here, you can play. And I'm like, all right, you know what? And I kind of took that mindset for the rest of the time because, I was so grateful for Colorado, obviously giving me my opportunity and some of the best people I've ever met, from front office, coaching staff, everybody. But they were up front with me, and they said, hey, you're older, you're an independent ball guy. And they were like, if you want to move through this system, you got to do twice as much as everybody else. That's just how it works. And I said, okay, you know what? I'll take that to heart, and I'll show you. I can do it. And next thing you know, the ACL, the stats didn't count at the time when I was pitching, but it was unreal how I was throwing. You go to Fresno, and it's like, man, I end up getting thrown into a starter role out of nowhere. And next thing you know, I blink and I'm starting game 1 of the championship in low A. And at the time, it's low A, right? But it felt big to me, and I was like, man, they're at least paying attention that I'm doing well. And then, the next year, independent ball guy, right? So I show up to spring training. You're fighting to even make a roster. And luckily I made that high A roster, was able to go there, struggled as a starter. They put you in the pen. Next thing you know, I think I went on like a 4-run and 37-inning stretch, get the double A. And I knew when I got the double A, that was like my test. Hey, either he has it or he don't. Let's see what he can do. And I ended up throwing pretty well in double A in 22. And then 23, had another great year. Sent me to triple A the last week of the season. And I think I gave up like 8 runs in Albuquerque through 1 inning. And I was like, oh boy, altitude's different. And then, that next year, last year, 24, took what I learned from Albuquerque, how bad that was, and kind of, sharpened the skills and put up a great year in Albuquerque last year.
Yeah, you kind of touched on her before, but your wife, Kaylee, she's been through all of these ups and downs, mate, with you. She's been back and forth. You've moved everywhere with her. She's followed you along. And, I do believe in relationships. There are different runs. It's like a sports game, right? You go on runs and then you call a timeout and you go on another run. And right now it's your run. Right now it's your time to shine. And later on could be her time and you'll be the one sacrificing. But for now, she's been the person that's been there by your side every day. I'm sure she's given up so much to support you. Can you speak to me about how you two have remained so strong through all the tests and trials that you've faced, and also what she means to you throughout this journey?
Oh, well, man, I'll tell you what, she's been the biggest blessing in my entire life. And I look at her, she never complains, never says anything. And even that indie ball route, the average student, she was just an average student in Coastal Carolina. You graduate college, and a lot of people, they want that life to get started, right? Go into work, marriage, children, and do those things. And, she kind of looked at me and was like, I know how much the game means to you. And she looked at me like, so far in your life, you've given your whole life to the game. And, credit to her, she kind of looked at me like, hey, life's not going anywhere. Your body and your health is, as long as you can play this game. And she was like, I would feel regretful if she tried to pull me away from the game. And she just encouraged me. She's like, look, keep going. And it was one of those things where anywhere I went, no matter the ups, the downs, she was always there. And I think since low A, when she could start streaming games, I don't think she has missed one game. Whether I'm pitching, whether I'm not, she's watching everybody play. So to know that she loves the game, right? But I know she loves me, where she can push me to continue to play. I truthfully believe where I am right now, I would not be where I'm at if it was not for her. And then behind the scenes, man, she does so much for me to keep my, mind on the game, and handles everything off the field. So it's just been, man, she's been remarkable. I could go on for probably 3 hours with you on how great she is, but it really is, as a player, having that support system and that rock where anything I need, I know within a call. She answers on the first ring, and she's there, whether it's to pick me up, or, keep the head level at times where I'm frustrated maybe, or things of that nature. Man, she's just across the board incredible.
Now, she's obviously been a huge supporter of your baseball career, but please tell me you didn't propose at a baseball game. Please tell me it was something. Please tell me you separated those two.
100%. Yeah, it was I think I did it 2022, right before I went to spring training. I had a couple of my closest friends I call, brothers to me. Invited them down. I was like, hey, come down to the beach. We'll play some golf, do some stuff before I leave for spring training. I told them, hey, that's what I'm selling it to her as, and I'm like, but I'm going to propose. I want you guys there to celebrate and whatever. And we went to a place in Pawleys Island, South Carolina, where we were living at the time called Brook Green Gardens. They do a Night of 1,000 Candles show. It's a bunch of lights, very historic place. And we were just kind of walking through, showing everybody, hey, look how cool this is. And next thing you know, she has her back turned and she turns around and I'm on a knee, So it was a good moment. But yeah, definitely not a baseball game. I'm not that guy. I couldn't do that. I wanted to do something close to home where her parents could celebrate and family and friends.
Well, good. I don't know how it would have gone if it was a baseball game, mate. You might have tipped the scales too far. Now, there was an article the other day, and I did put a piece up on our Instagram page. It was in The Athletic, and it had some anonymous sources from players, and it spoke about the misconceptions of being a professional athlete. Some of the things in there were you can just hook people up with gear all the time, that you are loaded. There's money coming out of every which way. There were a lot of things in there that I guess I thought of, and there are a lot of things that I didn't think of as well. So can I ask you, as somebody who has played at the highest level, what are some misconceptions that you've come across that people have assumed that you're living the life as a professional ball player, but it's not actually the case? What are some things that you've come across, mate?
I would just say, like we're human at the end of the day. I understand, we wear a jersey, and whatever jersey you wear, you represent that organization and that city, because for us, the fans, I know a lot of them know it, but some don't. Like, yeah, they mean everything to us, right? When they got our backs and they're behind us, it only helps us play better. It's going to give us confidence. Like, even when you're in a rough patch, if, those fans are showing support, that eases your mind, and I would say, we have a bad day, right? Bad game. Like, it's probably, the fans got to realize it's eating us twice as much as it's eating them. Like, you think we want to go out there and not pitch well, not play well? Like that's the part that kills us. And, I would say we have lives off the field too, man. Like there could be family issues, right? There could be, all kinds of things going on off the field that everything isn't just baseball for us. We're trying to balance both worlds. Luckily, is my off the field situation good? Yeah, luckily I don't have a lot of problems or anything, but it's a long season. It's hard on the body, and it's hard on the mind, and I'd just say, yeah, that's the biggest misconception for me is that, there's nothing off the field or because that we play professional baseball and all the money in the world, right? Everything in life should be great. Well, that doesn't always work that way. And I feel like, to me, that's the biggest misconception. And I'd say in the big leagues, when you're up there playing, granted, I've only had maybe 3 weeks total in the big leagues, 4 games. It's like you're sitting up there and, you have a bad day. And I've played 2 good games and I've had 2 horrible ones in the big leagues. And it's like, man, when you try to digress, you're sitting there, you open up Instagram, right? You just want to take your mind off some stuff. And you see some of the messages that come through. And I'm sitting there like, dang, like, yeah, it was a bad day. But I'm like, man, these messages for, my first game in the big leagues, my debut, I'm like, man, this is kind of harsh, And I'm like, I was beating myself up. So, I don't think the fans realize some of the messages that can come through and some of the things that we have to see and deal with. Luckily, not all fans are like that. I believe the real fans are supportive, which luckily here in Seattle, I feel like there's a lot of great fans. They rally behind every single guy, which to me is incredible to see. So luckily here, great fan base, where I feel like not a lot of guys have to deal with those problems. But yeah, I would just say those are some of the biggest misconceptions to me.
So the Marlins claim you off waivers in June of 2024. So again, mate, you're on the move once again.
Mm-hmm.
At least you're going to some warm weather. I suppose that's a positive. And then in July, late July, you actually make your MLB debut. So before we get into the actual day and what happened, can you just walk me through the emotions, mate? Like, you're undrafted. You've gone the indie ball route. You have had to fight your ass off for every single opportunity that you've received. And then you've reached the dream of so many, and so many that may have been taken in the first 5 rounds of that shortened draft that didn't get to achieve that ultimate goal. Can you tell me about how you found out that you were going to the bigs? And what the hell did you feel, mate? It's just incredible.
Yeah, so I mean, I got the call. We were playing in Norfolk at the time, facing the Orioles, and I got the call. Hey, you're going to the big leagues, and they were in Milwaukee at the time, and flew to Milwaukee. Sat there for that first game, didn't pitch. Come in after the game, they're like, "Hey, we're going to option you," and I'm like, "Man, that's the second time now I've been to the big leagues. And I still haven't pitched." And then as soon as I got back to Jacksonville, as soon as I landed, I think it was on a Sunday, I get a call, and they say, "Hey, you're going right back to the big leagues. You're going up to Tampa. You're going to be on the taxi squad because the trade deadline was that day." And next thing you know, I get to Tampa, I think at noon, and I just sat at the hotel from noon to 6 p.m. And I'm watching Trevor Rogers, Josh Bell, Tanner Scott, Brian Hoeing, Brabus. I'm watching all these guys come back to the hotel getting traded, and I'm sitting there. I'm looking at the time, and I'm like, man, the game's in 10 minutes, 15 minutes. Something's got to happen. And they said, hey, we're going to activate you. Hop on the bus, come to the stadium, just get your jersey on, go sit in the pen. Probably won't use you. And next thing you know, I get there and I throw the jersey on, no stretch, no throw, go sit in the pen, and the mic comes on. They're like, "Hey, Kitchen's in the seventh," and I was like, "Oh man, here's the debut, here's the dream." Obviously, went out there and wasn't a great day, but at the end of the day, you make your debut, and for me, I'd say the emotions. It just felt like I said, I'm a big man of faith. I just felt like a walking miracle. I'm like, man, where I was in 2019, 2020. Working at a bakery in Pittsburgh and working at a car dealership, trying to chase this dream. To next thing you're standing on the field and you see the third deck, and I'm sitting there like, man, this is a big league park, like you did it. And now I just kind of looked at it like mentally, where I was like, man, now the journey's just begun. Like now you've got to where you want to be. Now's the time to perform and try to fulfill the career that I always envisioned. And that just, for me, the debut was everything. Sadly, my whole family, everybody flew out to Milwaukee, and then I got optioned. They flew back, so nobody was even there for my debut, which that was kind of the sad part of it, I guess. I didn't get to share the moment with anybody. And then, I ended up getting optioned right after that one. But, it was an incredible feeling. It did feel weird, though, because, being a young guy, spent my whole career in Colorado, and that place turned into family. That was the only place I knew. So it did feel weird debuting in a Marlins jersey. Because as a kid, you get signed, you envision debuting with the team that you signed with. But I just looked at it like, hey, the debute's the debut. I was thankful for Miami. Obviously they wanted me to take me off waivers, put me on the roster. So I enjoyed my time there, but it was a cool experience, man.
See, this is the side of sports that I love. It's not everyone has that dream where they get the call. We see all the time these young kids come up, Cole Young recently for the Mariners, and the families can fly in, and it's this storybook ending. There's a real grind side to baseball, and it is, this is what this podcast is about. Like, don't get me wrong, we would love to have Cole Young on, but there are other stories out there to share that are different. So then there's another huge one. So you named a starter, and that's against Philly in early September. So you've had your debut. That moment's magical. And now being a starter, like, is that another elite moment? Is that something else that you're ticking off your bucket list? Or is it kind of like, you know what, I've already played in the major leagues. This is just sort of another thing. And were your family able to come out to that game?
Yeah, so even that day for me, it's I don't even think people understand the story, so I'll tell it. But obviously, wasn't a starter. I was a 1 inning, 2 inning guy in minor league ball, and that day we had a starter. That was supposed to start. I guess he was sick or something happened. He didn't inform anyone on the team, none of the staff, that he was sick. So he just didn't show up for his start. And it was 40 minutes, I think, before first pitch. And I just feel like my entire career, when there's a tough situation, there's kind of something tough to handle. I just feel like for some reason, everything's always been like, hey, you got it, right? You go do it. So they just, 30 minutes before first pitch, I'm sitting in my locker with a teammate, getting ready for the game. And pitching coach Mel Stoudemire calls me over, and he goes, hey, you're going to start. And I was like, what? You're kind of stunned. You're like, wow, what just happened? They're like, yeah, we don't know where so-and-so's at. Something happened. We need a starter. And they're like, we're just going to throw you out there. and go start for us. So the mind, I'm used to lock it in. That fourth inning comes, third inning, it's like, hey, let's get serious. Let's start locking in on the game and get ready for, your outing. So the shift was so quick where I was like, wow, all right, I had to throw the uniform on real quick, head to the pen, and, start getting it rolling. So that was a tough spot, to be thrown into. But like I said, I don't care. It taught me a lot. It was an opportunity. Did it go the way I wanted? No. But for me to be kind of unprepared heading in for a job like that, I try, like I said, glass half full, try to find the bright side. You're facing Schwarber, Harper, Turner, Stott, Marsh. You're looking at the guys that you've been watching on TV, and like I said, that was only my fourth big league game, and even when some of the hits started getting through the holes, right? Things aren't going the way you wanted. Even out there, I felt like I had a decision to make, right, where I could have tried to be more fine, live on the corners, or try to do something different. And man, I just kept going at them. I just throwing it in there, filling it up, and taking my chances with it, trying to do a job and go as long as I could for that team. And like I said, it could have been easy for me to kind of roll over and say, hey, I'm going to try to live on the corners and get away and pitch completely different. But no, I stuck to my guns. And like I said, did it go right? No. But for me, I didn't change who I was out there. Did what I tried to do. At the end of the day, it didn't go good, but ended up eating some innings for the team. And sadly, that ended up. We burned every arm imaginable for a game like that. Came in the next day and they just looked at me and they're like, hey, man, we don't want to do this, but they're like, we need arms. Like, we have nobody. We got to DFA you. So it was a crazy experience. But like I said, the time in Miami in 2.5 months, I feel like I learned a lot about me and kind of, I don't care what comes my way, I can handle it. It's kind of how I look at it nowadays. Like, I've seen it all. I've done it all. Long relief, random starts, high leverage save opportunities, even this year, closing a couple games. Then the next game I'm out there for 3 innings. So I feel like I've kind of been a Swiss Army knife. And just, I don't care what gets thrown at me nowadays. I just feel like, yep, I've been there, I've done it. I can handle it. So
everyone's a big leaguer, and there's no disrespect to anyone, but there are levels to being a big leaguer. And you threw out a few names before, and they're all good players, but there's one that stands out above the rest. That's Bryce Harper. So you've got your Harpers, you've got your Judges, your Otanis, that upper echelon of players. Can I just ask, when Bryce Harper walks in the box and you're on the mound, like, this is Bryce fucking Harper. Is there part of you that's like a little bit of a fangirl out there? Is there part of you that's nervous? Is there part of you that's like, shit, that's Bryce Harper? Or is that, when you're in that game mode, is that just simply another batter that you've got to get out?
Honestly, in the game mode, he shows up to the plate and, you don't really know what's kind of how you're going to feel. You always think what you're going to expect or how you're going to feel. And I just remember looking at him and I was like, man, this is what you prayed for. This is what you wanted. I'm like, he's standing there. And I was like, I don't care who tells me what, even to this day. I know I can be a good big leaguer. And I was like, man, if that's how you feel, here's your shot. Go prove it. And that's just kind of how I looked at it. And I said, hey, you're going to pitch scared and, try to pitch around him. I'm like, or am I going to throw my best stuff and go right at him? And I was like, man, I don't care who's in the box. I'm like, man, I'm going to do what I do. And that's throw strikes, fill it up, and mix and match pitches, and I'm like, man, I'm just going to go right at him. So it honestly, I thought I'd be kind of fanboyish a little bit and be like, dang, like, yeah, it's Bryce Harper. And I was just in the game mode, obviously in the middle of competing. I was like, man, I don't care. I was like, I don't care who you are. If you breathe oxygen, it's fair game. Like, if you're in that box, I'm going at you. So
they all bleed, mate. They all bleed.
Mm-hmm.
Same as us.
100%.
So you did mention you DFA'd after the game. It's the side of baseball that sucks. We just see Rowdy Tellez, for the Mariners. The guy came in on a deal. He worked his absolute tail end off, and unfortunately, it's the business. And you were able to land on your feet. You're with the Mariners, and I have this rule with the Mariners where if you're an arm and we get you, there's something about you. We don't take people that have nothing about them. So when you found out it was Seattle that you were heading to, can you just walk me through what you thought? Because we've got such a track record in helping people achieve their goals.
Yeah, when Seattle called, I'll be honest, that wasn't a team that was on the radar for me where I thought, because obviously Seattle, look at what we are. We're the best pitching organization in baseball. And I was looking at it like, man, you look at the bullpen in the big leagues, even last year, the starting rotation. I'm like, yeah, that's the best of the best. So I was like, I don't think they need help. I thought I was going to go to a team that really needed help. But yeah, I remember I was standing in my driveway at home. Justin Hollander called and just said, hey, we're super excited. And he was like, we wanted to get you out of Colorado when you were on waivers there, but you didn't make it to us. And they were like, you made it to us this time. We're excited. We want you here. And from what I know, they just said my ability to get left-handed hitting out, strike throwing ability. I don't walk many people. So they kind of just raved. And at the time when you just got kicked to the curb, you kind of feel like, dang, I had my shot. I missed it. And then to have a call like that come through, we're such a great organization that is known for pitching calls and says, hey, we love everything about you. We know you can be a big leaguer. We wouldn't claim you if you couldn't. So the confidence went right back up, where I was like, hey, this is a fresh start. And, never to discredit any organization I've been with. But where I've been hasn't necessarily been known for development for pitching. And I feel like my career, I've kind of been a little on my own, as far as learning some stuff. And I've had some great coaches coming up that have taught me how to pitch, but not what makes me good. Like, why do I get the outs? And then I came here, and as soon as I showed up to Oklahoma City for the second to last week of the season, when I got to Tacoma, Jairo Cuervas, the pitching coach in AAA, man, he showed me a bunch of data. And I was like, man, that was my first time ever seeing, a ton of data. And he was like, looking through the numbers, and I'm like, well, is this good? Is this good? I didn't know what anything meant, and he was like, yeah, now I know why, we claimed you. He was like, this is really, really good. This is good. That's good. So he instilled some confidence in me. Obviously, when I got to Tacoma, just being honest, man, my mind, that was my sixth team on the year. If you add up minor league, affiliates and stuff, man, I was kind of drained. And I look back, like, that's one of my biggest regrets and failures was my last 2 weeks in Tacoma. And I get to most people that say, hey, it's just 2 weeks, right? Well, I wasn't in a great headspace, and I don't feel like I showed them, what I could have and what I could have done in that last season. So, I sat in the off season like, dang, I don't feel like I've shown Seattle what I can do. But, man, showing up early, I got to Peoria in January. And I wanted to get there early and learn as much as I could. And from Trent Blank to Pete Woodruff, Quinn Cleary, any of those coordinators, man, just from that January to right now, as much as I have learned in this time being, it tops everything. If you combine college and all my pro experience, I've learned more in the last 5 months than I have in my entire career. And, luckily I'm blessed. I'm throwing the ball well. And I'm like, man, they have made me a completely different pitcher. They have helped me. They have relayed to me what makes me good. So it's just, man, being here, everyone always asks me, does it stink being in AAA and this and that? Man, I don't even care right now. I'm like, I'm learning. I'm getting better. And to me, that's all I can control. So that's just what I focus on. But, man, has it been great being here.
So this season in Tacoma, you're looking at, well, when I got these notes together the other day, 23 games, 38 innings, 28 strikeouts, and a 3.55 ERA. But, mate, you've been hitting a really bloody golden patch recently. So June was 7 games, 11.1 innings, and a 1.59 ERA. So when you reflect on your season so far, how would you sum it up? You've obviously had this great period. Is that because the weather's warming up? Yeah, summarize that one for me.
I would just say, Seattle enables the pitchers and the players to go out there, and they give you target goals, right? You have certain goals to head into a season, things you need to get better at. And I always looked at it like, man, if they're telling me I need to get better at something, do something different, man, take it as constructive criticism and go apply it, go try it. And they encourage all of us like, hey, results matter, right? It's a results-based industry. But when you're going out there trying to work on what we tell you to do, it might not be perfect right away. And, I remember going out against Reno to start the year. It was a tough little stretch of a week, and I was trying to find my groove, and, we changed a couple of things. And once we changed a couple of things and I got acclimated to what I was trying to do, man, it just kind of changed everything. And, they've put me in roles where it's like I've had to go 3.2 innings out of the pen. I've had to go 3. I've had a save. Where I've had to start. Like, I've kind of had to do a little bit of everything. And no matter what the role is, if I stick to what they want me to do and who I should be, um, man, it's easy. Like you're going to do what you need to do, give you the recipe. Now, there's days, obviously, you're going to have an off day, you don't feel good, you don't have your best stuff, you get hit, right? But for me, the consistency has been huge from June and then even to this month where, we're pitching in a hard league. The PCL, half the places we go, the ball doesn't even move because of the altitude, ball flies. So it's like, man, if I can keep the ball on the ground, be what makes me special, continue to get left-handed hitting out, that's all that matters to me. But, man, the feedback, the knowledge, I can't even describe to you how great it is. Because I told, Woody this at the end of camp. I just got reassigned to minor league camp. And, for him to come over to the minor league side, have one last meeting and say, hey, this is what we want to see, right? I told Woody this. I was like, man, I feel like you guys have 100 acres of just knowledge, and they just put it in like a little, snow globe for you. And they say, hey, shake it and remind yourself it's this simple. Do these couple little things. This is who we are as an organization. This is what we believe. Do them, and the numbers will show. And, I always tell myself great players or good players are bought in, great players are all in. And from game one of this season, I just say, hey, be all in. You've always wanted to learn something and have someone tell you and teach you some things. Be all in. And being all in, man, the results to me are there. And they've made all my stuff better, all my pitches, the commands even better. So it's just like, man, it's just an unreal feeling, to be honest with you, to be here on the pitching side of things.
So I only have a couple more questions, mate, because I don't want to take up your whole day. But, from the last hour of getting to know you, I would say my assumption of you would be you're a man of faith. You're a proud husband. You're somebody who perseveres through adversity, and you're a team-first person. That would be my summation of who Austin Kitchen is. But for Mariners fans who this may be their first time hearing you speak, this may be their first time even hearing of you, how would you describe yourself as a person and what you're bringing to our organisation?
Man, I think you hit the nail on the head. Man of faith, proud husband, and then one thing for me that I try to be is a huge clubhouse guy. I like to joke around in the clubhouse. I like to keep things light, and I feel like based off the things the staff has told me and how the players respond, I feel like I'm kind of infectious in the locker room because there's so many ups and downs. Everyone's career and season's going different, right? Some are going good, some are going bad. And I try to look at it like, man, one thing I can do with my personality is be in that clubhouse and make everybody laugh. Try to bring light on certain stuff. And man, I feel like I've helped some guys here as far as, keeping them in a bright spot. And I just, to the fans, man, I would just say I'm a good clubhouse guy. I'm going to keep those guys in good spirits. And I'm just a team first guy. For me, I feel like I can kind of handle anything that's come my way. So I look at it like, man, let me help the other guys, and we've done a great job here with some of the older guys like Jesse Hahn, Casey Lawrence, those guys that help do that as well. And those guys, I just try to be a sponge, which is what I would be in the big leagues from talking to Woo, Logan Gilbert, those guys in camp. You learn as much as you can. But for the fans, man, I just say, yeah, man of faith, proud husband, good dude. And whatever jersey I'm suiting up in, I'm going to give it my all and pull for that org and everything I can do to make them, where they want to be, which for us is getting to the playoffs. And I don't care if I'm down here and not up there. Everyone down here plays a role too, man. We're all one call away. We're never hoping on anything ever, to happen bad to somebody, right, where we got to go. But you got to be ready. It's a game that's been crazy. And, I mean, you've seen the movement this year. You just never know when it's going to come. And I just want to be prepared so that when I have that opportunity, I can do my job and help get these fans to the playoffs and where they want to be.
Now, we finish up with the same two questions for every guest. The first is, you're having a hypothetical dinner party and you can invite 4 people. Now, 2 people need to be current Mariners players and the other 2 can be anybody that you want. I'm guessing you should probably take your wife in those 2, but hey, this is your segment, not mine. Who's coming to your dinner party?
So out of the Mariners, that's tough to pick. I would say Julio. I love Julio. I love his personality. And then I would say, man, I love JP. JP's a guy that I can just vibe with. But man, I'd have to pick my catcher. I'd have to go with Cal. So Julio and Cal, I'd pick, and then I'd have my wife there, so she can have that experience. And then, man, I'd say my father-in-law. Obviously when I moved back to South Carolina, I had to live with him, for 4 years. And me and him, man, we've gotten so tight. He's like a best friend to me, and he's a big baseball guy. So I think I'd bring him in so he can meet Julio and Cal and talk some shop.
Mate, you're winning. You're winning all across the board there, winning points with everyone. Now, finally, obviously we're over the other side of the world. I am coming back to Seattle in August, but it's hard to create these connections. And you touched on before some of the shit that you guys get in your DMs. It goes above and beyond. It's not fair, which leads. It can be quite hard to reach out to players to get them on the podcast, and then also to call a spade a spade. A lot of the other Mariners podcasts are crap. They're trying to get hot takes. They're talking shit about you behind their back. It's very different to what we're trying to do. So I do ask this question of who we should have on the podcast as a guest, but I do put the caveat in there. Whatever name you say, you've got to help put the good word in for us.
I'm going to go Jesse Hahn. I think that would be a great guy to be on, because I feel like he's had 7 years of service, right? But it hasn't all come from one team, and he's had some injuries in the past that he's battled through. And I'm like, man, for us as a teammate, who he is, and then the younger guys, I understand I'm 28, but he's 36, so he's almost a decade on me. And man, he teaches so much, and I just feel like some of the stories he's able to tell from his big league time and his experiences, man, I'd be like, what a guy to interview. The amount of stories he can tell from where he's been and what he's done, and then a guy that's been up there, and when he's been up there, he's been nailed. He's been good. So I think he'd be a good guy, and I feel like I got his ear pretty good, so I could definitely help get him on, I would think. So that would be my guy of choice.
Beautiful, mate. I'll send him a DM after this. I'll get the ball rolling, but we'll look after you as well. We'll send you a T-shirt. We'll send you some. They're called Tim Tams. They're the world's greatest chocolate biscuit that come from Australia. So that for you and your wife to snack on. But mate, this has gone way longer than I expected, because you were very articulate. You dove in. You were raw. You were honest. Can't thank you enough for your time, mate. And honestly, yeah, it's only a matter of time before you're up there in Northwest Green, and we will be pulling for you. So thank you so much for everything this morning.
Well, I appreciate you guys reaching out, man, and giving me a chance to, tell my story, because I feel like in Seattle, probably many don't know, So I appreciate you giving me a chance to tell it, and, being accommodating with the times, man. I know it's a busy schedule and you're across the world, so it's not easy. But I appreciate you guys so much.
Nah, not a problem, mate. Thank you. All right, so that'll wrap up another episode of Mariners Down Under. Again, thank you to Austin for giving up his time, and thank you to you all for tuning in as well. Hopefully, the feedback that we've been getting from everybody is they want quick, short, sharp, informative stuff. What's happening with the Mariners? Give me some positivity, and let's explore and unpack the stories of some players. So we're going to continue to do that. We'll continue to pull on some strings and reach out to our connections and bring you more amazing stories from, our Seattle Mariners prospects and from hopefully the big league team as well. But be sure to get around our Instagram, the 2 giveaways. I want to give them away quick smart. I have a signed Julio Rodriguez jersey coming that we're going to give away once we get past our 1,000 follower giveaway. So we're wanting to get into that pretty quick smart. But again, thank you all for the support. Sorry for the rushed episode. This is what happens. It's winter in Australia. I'm unwell. I'm just trying to get this out without a coughing fit. So thank you for your patience. Thank you for your support. And as always, stay safe, stay well, and go Mariners.